welcome to the weekend edition of the Daily Market Commentary. I am your host, Chuck Fulkerson, and a special welcome to those of us joining us from TradersArmy.com for our weekend edition of the Core Market Perspective. Let's go ahead and do what we do each and every day. We're going to take a look at the same 10 to 12 futures markets, looking at potential turning points, and on the weekend edition, we like to look at some longer term and bigger picture opportunities as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, send us an email, and we will do our best to get as many of the questions answered as we can. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Not a whole lot to cover today, simply because we had a fairly, we did a video at the end of the week on Friday, so obviously not a lot has happened. Futures markets have opened up. The S&P, we still have a couple of areas in here. We were able to get over, and I was looking at the 4-hour chart, and the 4-hour chart to me was very important. I was not ready to buy in to the rally until we got higher than the 4-hour high, and we actually did get higher than that 4-hour high. Once we got higher than the 4-hour high, it gave me a little bit more comfort in order to look at longs. Again, I was primarily focusing on shorts up until then. Now we're sitting right near this area here for the 4-hour, but the arrival that we had was fairly weak. We're kind of chopping around in it. We may get a little bit of a pullback down on Monday, but I don't know if it'll be something that's really something to concern ourselves with. As far as our areas for potential reversal, we've got a short opportunity up here right at 2,800, and that's obviously going to be some whole round number resistance at that point as well. We also have a little bit of a buy point down here at 26.75. I don't know if we're going to get down to that area. That's fairly far away from our current price. Something to look at is the potential for a breakout long. We could have a possible breakout long above this area here. So kind of keep that as a potential going forward. Looking at the Nasdaq. Now the Nasdaq underperformed the last couple of days. The Nasdaq has slightly underperformed the S&P. As you can see, the S&P, we've got about those roughly the same highs here. The Nasdaq a little bit lower, although we're still up right now, higher than where we closed on Friday. Friday, we gave a little bit back at the end of the day, and I kind of expected that end of the day, kind of giving a little bit back. That was part of the, I put out a tweet earlier in the day that I expected a little bit of a profit-taking pullback, but we're still on an upward trend trajectory and a decent buying area down here as well. So keep this area in mind kind of going forward. Looking at this on a bigger picture, if I even move out to, say, the daily chart, there's a chance that we'll get up to this 7,000 area and stall out because back to when we reached that all-time high area, we could always stall out, considering that is a resistance point, an area where there's probably a fair amount of latent supply that's kind of hanging out. So I think we could have a tough time getting through there, but I think it'll pull back and then pop up through. There's really no reason to think right now that won't occur. So let's move over a little bit to commodities. And in commodities, let's talk about crude oil. So crude oil, if you're looking at this on a big picture scale, right? A big picture scale, we're coming off kind of a selling area up in here. If you move this down to a daily chart, on the daily chart for crude oil, we've got a downward trend that's brewing, right? We've brewed a downward trend, lower swing low, lower swing high. And so if you're looking at this on, say, a 4-hour time period, that would make you more of a seller. And one of the things I looked at today, I was speaking to a friend over the weekend, and we talked about some potential areas. My problem with selling at the 4-hour was that this was a fairly weak selling area. So we'd only get short if price got below here, and we would do the candle-to-candle style of trading. And that has not occurred, right? We've not seen that movement happen. So since we haven't seen it happen, we do have a potential breakout coming up above here, and that's what we just got, is the breakout above this area. So this is the line that we drew last week for a potential breakout long. Remember, a trend is a trend until it ends, right? So if we do get a higher swing high, then that trend would end. Now on this breakout, your stop's going to have to be well below 61.22. So you got plenty of room. It's always going to be below the last swing low before the breakout to the upside. So keep that one in mind. Gold, looking at gold. So looking at gold on our smaller time period chart, we do have an area set up in gold. We had an area set up for a potential long. Price came back down to the area, gave us one little bounce out of it, came into it again, and then failed miserably. So we've got to remove that area. That's no longer going to be a valid area. However, we could now that we broke through that potential buying area, see a little bit of a rollover and a reversal in the gold markets. So keep an eye on this one, kind of double topping, if you will, and coming back down into this 1339 region. I think there's a chance we could fall back into that 1339 region. So for those of you that are looking for a potential gold short, we've gotten below this area here. So I think that this could be a good candle-to-candle opportunity to look at shorting gold down to that 1339 region, which would be this area here of resistance for candle-to-candle style. Taking a look at our bond markets. So looking here at our, let me get rid of some of these lines here. These are some older ones. So taking a look at some of our bond markets, we're actually seeing a little bit of an uptrend with some strength in the bond markets, some things that we haven't seen in quite a while. As the bonds have been a fairly weak investment opportunity. So if you are so inclined, you might get a little bit of a reversal off the bonds and a potential to get long right in here. Now, I would take this as a candle-to-candle style. Allow it to get in and for price to start to head back up. You might even want to be so bold as to wait for the 4 hour to give you a better entry and get higher high than this. Now, when you look at it on the 4 hour, you realize, whoa, that's pretty counter trend. So it would be a very small time frame trade if indeed you were to take that one. So just be cautious on that if you want to take that counter trend. Our Aussie trade, the Aussie level met entry and has moved nicely out of that area. So hopefully some of you were able to take some profits. I know I talk a lot about taking profits over the weekend, so hopefully you're able to take some profits on the Aussie trade. So that should have you doing the happy dance coming off of that little area here. I'm going to remove these lines for now. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave these on just in case we want to review this trade again later in the week. So that Aussie trade is working out very effectively. At the very least, I would take my stop and move it down to probably right about this area here, just below here, in case we get down. That way you can take some profits off the table. The euro trade, so that one we've been waiting on for quite a while. Price has finally come into that region, and we're starting to see a little bit of a move out. I don't like the depth that we traded into the area, so be very cautious on stop taking. I also am not going to take this a second time in because we came all the way down to the bottom of this area here. So this one's not going to be valid going forward, but it is moving our way for now. The Canadian dollar. So the Canadian dollar, we've got a breakout potential in this one. We had talked about this as a potential breakdown, and price gave us a little touch, and whether or not you got in on a stop limit trade on that one, then you probably are close to getting stopped out on that because you place your stop just above this pivot. So this one could still work out just fine. There's plenty of room for it to continue to fall, and we'll see what that one eventually does. Last and certainly not least, we've got to remove our nat gas. So our copper area has hit, and it's starting to come down out of that level. That's the second time that level has hit and is working, so I'm going to remove those lines, but that one is moving along just fine. Our Great British Pound levels are still in play, as is the nat gas level above us, right through here, and then the Japanese yen on the breakdown below this area here for potential short. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this thing off for the week. I hope everybody had a great trading week. If there's something I can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Chuck@iiefinancial.com. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Bye.